More alternative energy. I'm joined by Joanna Lewis. She's an associate professor focused on energy at Georgetown University right here in D.C. Good to see you,
yes,
first of all.
Here.
Last time we talked to where we talked now, a lot has changed. Oil prices, a very different price. Let me start with clean energy. Everyone's trying to make the correlation that it's been impacted. The study that we cited earlier said it would not have an impact. Your opinion?
I think it depends where you are and what the market looks like. So in the United States, for example, I don't think you're going to see much impact. The United States doesn't use that much oil for electricity. Neither does a big market like China. China's using mostly coal. And so it depends what oil is competing with and what the substitutes are available.
You saw Jessica there talking with people who are installing solar panels. And we have discussed this, that are we at that critical mass yet where it makes good financial sense to basically do mass installs around the country? Are we there?
Yeah, if you look at where investments are going in clean energy, it's in these big mega projects. But the second place it's going is in distributed projects, including rooftop solar. So it's actually making sense at a smaller economic scale as well, just because the costs have dropped so dramatically in the last few years.
Okay, but the other side of that coin is if it's such a great deal and it's so affordable, why aren't builders putting it into the brand new houses they are building?
Well, I think that you need to have whoever's investing in it realizing that they're going to get back the cost, right? And so that depends state to state. In the United States, for example, what the policies are, whether you're going to be able to make back the cost of the system through electricity being paid back to you by your utility.
It's been an interesting last couple of years because originally the solar industry was powered, for lack of a better word, by subsidies.
Right.
And a lot of those subsidies have changed over the years, and as you mentioned, it changes from state to state. Do you think there should be a national standard, or are you okay with the way things are right now?
Well, I think policies are going to change over time and the markets will adjust. I mean, some signal of policy certainty is very useful. I think what China does is quite interesting. They set long-term goals and targets, which sets a signal to the industry. The United States has been a bit more up and down with their policy support. We had a lot of support coming out of the stimulus package for both wind and solar. So you saw a peak in 2011 and then a dip over the last few years, and we're now just recovering back last year.
We spend so much time, I mean, in terms of as a business show and as an organization, we talk a lot about solar panels and we talk a lot about the manufacturers, but we rarely talk about the benefits to the installers. There's a whole community out there of folks who install. So my question to you is, solar prices have dropped. Yes, obviously that hurts manufacturers, but how has that affected the installers? Well,
if you look at the entire value chain for solar and where the money's being made in the US in particular, it's in the installation. So a lot of the panels that we're installing here are made overseas. They're made in China, they're made in other countries. But the companies who are really making good money in this business are the ones who are installing, because that has to be done locally with local jobs, locally trained workers.
And obviously that job market is increasing at a breakneck pace. Are there enough workers being trained in that? What's involved in training someone to install solar panels?
Yeah, I think that, this is definitely a growth area and there's still a lot of opportunities here. So I think we're going to see increasing, vocational programs, technical programs to train more and more people. But this is certainly a big career opportunity.
In states where they have the right weather, wind is a big deal.
Yes.
And I can tell you in California, Washington State, and I'm sure you can cite a bunch of states as well. And there was a lot of talk that wind would be sort of this next big thing that essentially would overtake solar. Compare wind and solar, and of the two, which one makes more sense?
Well, I think wind has actually been the story of the past few years, and solar is really the recent story. I mean, wind had been the much bigger renewable energy source over the last few years. China has, grown to be the largest wind energy market in the world. But solar, just in the last 2 years, has jumped really, really quickly, and I think that's where we're going to see even more rapid growth in the years to come, and that is because costs have come down so dramatically.
But in fairness, as a business person, I would say, okay, that's great for solar, but it sounds like that's not good for the wind energy market.
I think that's right, but the area in wind that we're seeing new growth, which we hadn't in a long time, is offshore wind. Because the problem with wind is that you have to build it usually far away from demand centers. You have to build transmission. That's why solar is so valuable. You can put it right on your roof. You can have it close to load. Offshore wind, you can build it right on the coastline near urban centers. This is happening in the UK. This is happening in much of Europe.
Some criticism, the cost, solar panel prices have come down, and that's great. But the cost of installation is quite expensive.
Sure.
Is that going to change over the next couple of years, or should it?
I think it will continue to fall with competition. I mean, this, again, as I mentioned, is an industry where we're seeing a lot of new companies enter. And so you're going to see that that segment of the value chain also drop, and I think it will benefit consumers who want to really get into this market.
Okay, well, it's a really hot market. We're going to watch the space very carefully
Yeah.
along with you. Joanna Lewis, thank you very much.
Thank you.
From Georgetown University.